The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the second Wednesday webinar series. My name is Kathy Guidry, and I'm the Customer Service Manager and Conference Coordinator for the Dibble Institute. And today I'm going to be your organizer for the webinar. Our title of the webinar today is Impacting Future Generations, Implementing Relationship Education in the Community Setting. Our presenter today will be our very own Irene Varley, Director of Education from the Dibble Institute. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself later, but I want to let you know a few things, kind of housekeeping rules that you might want to keep in mind as you're listening to the webinar. If for some reason you're unable to access the audio through the computer, you can still watch the PowerPoint on your computer, but listen to the webinar through your phone. And if you'd like to jot down this phone number in case for some reason you're disconnected from the audio, you might want to do that. We really like your participation during this webinar. I do know that we will be asking poll questions, and when Irene has a poll question she wants to ask you, I will be letting you know about that, and you'll be able to pick your answer right on your screen. Also, she may ask a raise your hand question. Beside your name in your control panel is a little hand, and you can just mark that if you want to raise your hand. Kind of usually a yes or no question, or a question where that might happen. Also, any questions that you might have or comments that you might have, I will be looking over those during the webinar. We do have special places during the webinar where we will ask for specific questions, but you can write those questions in the question box that you see in your control panel. Now, if we don't get to your questions during the actual webinar, be sure that we will be answering you either personally through an email or through a phone call, because we want to make sure that all your questions are answered. Now, we do record the webinars, and you can view them about 3 days from now at www.dibbleinstitute.org/webinars. And Irene, would you tell us a little bit about Charlie Dibble, please?
Thanks, Kathy. Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be telling you about Charlie and Helen Dibble. Charlie was our founder at the Dibble Institute, and in his retirement years from being originally an aeronautical engineer, he dedicated himself to working with young people. In doing so, he became well aware of the emotional challenges for their long-term well-being. And this became most evident when in his early 90s at his grandniece's wedding, he heard her say, "Oh, Uncle Charlie, this is just my first wedding." It was the time the divorce rate was reaching its peak, and this response very much concerned Charlie. He had heard many painful stories from the youth he worked with following their own parents' relationship issues. So Charlie was concerned about the decreasing models of healthy relationships teens had to emulate. Well, to make a long story short, Charlie quickly realized minimal, unbiased research-based resources were available to address the development of skills needed to form successful, healthy relationships. In 1996, with the cooperation of fellow business colleagues, educators, and friends, he founded the Dibble Fund, now known as the Dibble Institute. Charlie's vision was to have accurate, unbiased, and timely research-based information available for you. And we pride ourselves in remaining true to Charlie's vision for positive outcomes for children through growing up in households where healthy, committed relationships are modeled. Well, that being said, that's not to say we're anti-divorce, as we realize there are marriages that, quite frankly, are best to end. As far as sexual orientation goes, we believe all young people benefit from being in a healthy relationship and can learn the skills necessary to inform them. You know, everyone benefits when healthy choices are made. And in keeping with that vision, I'm happy to join with you today in talking about impacting future generations, about implementing relationship education in community settings. I think in looking at our list of attendees today that you all in some way are working within the community, either in schools, health, counseling, or other community organizations. And because of that, you see every day the situation of families. You know what they are facing.
And Irene, I'm going to
Kathy,
turn...
I have to get my, I need to get my PowerPoint up.
That's right. I was getting ready to tell you. I was going to let you turn over the PowerPoints to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy.
Mm-hmm. You don't mind enlarging those for us?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for bearing with me. Forget about those little switches. Well, as I was saying, more and more, I'm back here. I know that because of the work you do, you definitely want families to be healthy and self-sufficient. And that's what we at the Dibble Institute is our aim, to see that young people are equipped to form the healthy relationships, that they have the tools to be ready to do that, to make positive and intentional healthy choices. So in doing so, today I want to talk about three things. How relationship education impacts the community in a very positive way, and how multiple program venues benefit by incorporating relationship education into their programming. And I'm just going to speak about a few programs that I'm familiar with that may be very similar to the organizations you work within as well. And a variety of funding streams exist to support relationship education in the community. I have just a few ideas on that, and there will be more later in the year, more definite as new funding streams become available. We know how things are today economically. It's very difficult. Well, part of what you were, I'm sure you've seen and know without having to be told by research, is that more children are living in single-parent homes. I'm going to refer to a study you might be aware of. It's the Fragile Families study by Princeton University and Columbia University. It's on the wellness of families. And in that, there are some very specific pieces of information that does impact our community. This study was about primarily couples who had children and that they were not married. They were either cohabitating. Let's see, about half of them were just living together. 32% of them were visiting unions, and 20% not even in a romantic involvement. And that was out of some 5,000 children that they followed in 1998 to 2000. And what they found was that with this impact of more and more children living in single-parent homes, created quite an impact economically and socially on the community, but also on the outcomes for the children. An interesting fact is that 35% of couples still together 5 years after the birth with less than were together 5 years after the birth of that child, and less than half of those 35% actually married. And that study, this is the website for it if you in fact want to look deeper into it. I'll give you a minute if you want to write this down. But it, again, as Kathy said, this information will be available to you. What is, I think, particularly interesting about it when they polled the fathers of these relationship couples, the vast majority of unmarried fathers say they want to help raise their child. Now, I think when we look at families who, especially young couples today that don't marry, that seem like they're in such casual relationships that there would possibly be no attachment to the children. But that isn't the case, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the latest study Catherine Eden has in Doing the Best I Can, and I'll reference that because it really connects to this statement. I found it very surprising. But what really happens now when we have children whose parents don't remain together, when they are not in that, don't form that committed relationship, children are disadvantaged. And in several ways. We all know that we've read in several studies, it's not just this fragile family study, that there's an increased risk of child abuse that children are exposed to. Boys of non-intact families are at higher risk of delinquency, and girls in non-intact families are more likely to become pregnant as teens. What is another interesting fact about that, these same implications for the children are what happened with their parents. Their parents were products of the same environments. They too, in the many, many mass majority of cases, were children whose parents were not married, or where they were exposed to family violence, lack of good, healthy relationship skills. So it continues on, and it's what was bad for the parents becomes bad for the children. And this is all reinforced in this study, and this is by Catherine Eden, Doing the Best I Can, Fatherhood in the Inner City. And this particular study concentrates on the male end of the relationship. There is, you may have seen on our website, there is an article that reviews the study, and I just picked up the book last week and has some really great input on it. You might find it very interesting. The adverse childhood experiences last a lifetime. We know that. It's always very, very sad to read in the news all the instances of the child abuse that occurs by partners of mothers, the one half of the parenting, the unmarried parenting couple who end up breaking up, and consequently the mother finds a new partner and the father is shoved out. And that's what Catherine Eden said too in her study, that so much adverse childhood experiences are a source and appear here when the father, the biological father, is pushed aside. So it's bad not only for the child, but that father who was suddenly so happy that he is going to be a father. Unintentionally, he was going to be the father. And what is so key about this, I found so relative to our work, is that he did not intend to be a father. He heard he was going to be a father, and suddenly it was that pregnancy that for a time in any way cemented the relationship during the pregnancy. But we know that anywhere from 5 years after, 2 to 5 years after the birth of a child, because they don't have the relationship skills to maintain that relationship, or that it was built on such faulty foundation that it doesn't last. But here we have a father who was so interested in it, and in 5 years, quite possibly never sees that child again. And I find that to be very sad, and I think an especially good moment for us as people who work with youth, that if we can get them at their height of energy to look at their behavior and to see the importance of what a healthy relationship having those skills to form that can mean in their life. It becomes relative to them. Very, very important. Well, we know that all kids are vulnerable, and some of you work with specifically high-risk kids, other with more average kids. Relationship education impacts all populations of kids. We all need to be strong advocates for our youth. How sad to see kids with so much promise have less than happy, healthy lives because of poor choices in their behavior. Relationship education is needed in middle school and reinforced in high school and then on to college. The spectrum of the need has really widened. We never thought of romantic relationship education when a child was going into 5th grade. But yet, what we're seeing is, and I'm hearing from teachers all over, how everything has bumped down, and we're hearing on the other side, on the higher end of the age group, where young people going and leaving home, going away to college, need to have their healthy relationships so that they can concentrate on the dreams and meeting their needs, both educationally and in a personal way, that they have healthy, successful, fulfilling lives. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case today. And you and I want healthy parental relationships, know and see where it is key to building the strong families of our community. And I'd like for you, some of you may have heard of our one activity that I think really explains it all. It's choosing red or green marbles. So I'm going to have to ask you to do a little bit of imaging with me. I'd like for you to picture me holding a bag of marbles, and they're all red marbles. I'm going to say there's about 20 red marbles in the bag, and there might be, let's say, 3 or 4 green ones tucked away in between all those red marbles. Now, those red marbles represent instances in a child's life growing up that were negative influences or to having a positive outcome. It could be poor communication within the family. It could be that there were very, very limited resources available for that family, or that the child was raised with multiple, or in a very complex family, maybe multiple father images in the family, or siblings from different mothers or fathers. Anything that would get a child into developing poor self-esteem, or quite possibly not having a model to really fall back on when coming up with making informed choices. So I'm going to ask you now to put a blindfold on and put your hand in this bag of marbles I'm holding. And I'd like for you to think, what are your chances that you're going to pick one of those green marbles that represent positive outcomes and positive choices? Do you think you have much chance of pulling those 3 green marbles in a bag full of red marbles? I would doubt it. What can you do in order to get a green marble in that big bag of red marbles? Well, first of all, you can take the blindfold off, and that's what relationship education does. Its intent is to take the blindfold off and to choose a little bit more intentionally. It's to build the intention back into your behavior. Did you really want to have a child by this, or if you're a father, by this woman, or are you just going to let it happen? It doesn't matter. It could be anybody. Could have been the woman down the street. It could have been the woman you're with today. It doesn't matter. There's no intention there. Or another way of getting a better choice at getting those green marbles is to create more possibilities. What would add more green marbles to your bag? Making healthier choices. Becoming aware of different skills that you need. Having a trusted adult relationship to fall back on in order to consult with somebody that you trust, who has proven to have good senses about them and have skills that you never learned. So there's some different ways, and that's what relationship education is. It is taking the mask off and adding more positive resources to your bag of marbles. So you're adding green marbles, and possibly even maybe those red marbles are falling away somewhere. When you pick them, you have the sense to know this is not healthy and you're throwing it away. So most people really respond well, and they get it when you have that bag of marbles and can understand it. And in fact, the kids get it when you explain it to them in this way too. It's a great way to build good imagery in explaining what relationship education does for you. Where is the relevancy? Families in relationship education, what does relationship education bring to them? Well, conflict resolution, communication skills, and all the skills to know what is commitment, what does it mean, what's it asking of me, and what kind of relationship can I commit to versus put up with, tolerate, or this is what happens, this is what it is, and just accept it. Not a good way to start a relationship. Participants learn about breaking up. I think breaking up is probably what I hear from teachers, what the kids appreciate most. You know, it's one thing to tell someone, well, just leave them. Don't worry about it. Just walk away. But there are ways of breaking up. How can we do it safely, number one? Or how can I do it that is positive for me, that I feel good about it? Learning about how that person responds to what I say and how I say it, and I know how I communicate, how they communicate, that I can break up and I can say it and be heard and walk away with dignity, not by texting someone, hey, I'm never going to see you again, you're a loser, or maybe never talking, just ignoring them and just letting it hang out there. They also learn about what is dating abuse. I'm thinking when I was growing up and an adolescent, I don't think I knew what dating abuse was. And maybe a lot of it had to do with I didn't really grow up in a really healthy communication, healthy home. My parents did a lot of arguing, and I can see where there was a lot of abuse going on. But, you know, it becomes your norm. So unless I see what it looks like compared to what healthy looks like, I will never understand it just by being in it. It has to be explained to me, and I have to have ways of understanding it to the point of in my language and in my environment. And why healthy relationships matter to children. I'm not sure that the young men, some of them were, like 17, 18 years old who had girls who were like 14 years old that Catherine Eden interviewed in her book, Doing the Best I Can, ever gave a thought to the children that they were creating. It was more about just taking each day as it comes without many plans or intentions or expectations for themselves or for the children that they were bringing into the world. Relationship skills programs reduce peer-to-peer physical and verbal abuse, which impacts future generations. As we said, the parents were probably very much products of verbal and physical abuse in their growing up years as well. They probably saw a lot. And parent-child communications can be improved. How wonderful if parents learn from their children. Kids go home and they help teach their parents things as well. And with that, communication skills are opened up. And finally, addressing the quality of a couple's relationship can prevent dysfunctional parenting practices. For those of you who work with young teen parents, this is especially important to help couples prevent dysfunctional parenting practices. Now, how does all this happen in relationship education? I'd like just to explain one particular activity that one of our programs has. It's in actually both in Relationship Smarts Plus and in the Love Notes program. But it's actually something you can do on your own, and it is a really good way of helping those who have never given any thought to what a healthy relationship looks like to have this comparison. Of course, before you would present this activity to one of your any of your students, you would definitely have already exposed them to the understanding what is healthy, what is not healthy, what is some smart ways of looking at a relationship. And you can do that using television, movies, music, in different ways. And it's always good to have different modes of activities or media, because we're all either visual learners or we are audio learners, and we give a great variety of ways to learn. But on this, I like this because we're trying to get young people to ask themselves, look at the relationship before it goes on too long, before there is a pregnancy. Is this relationship conditional or unconditional? And what they're then given is a list of, okay, what does conditional look like? What does it mean to have a conditional relationship? Well, conditional could be that you do this and I'll do that. If you have sex with me, then you can go shopping. If I buy you lots of clothes, you will love me. You know what conditioning means. Versus unconditional. I don't expect any type of behavior from you. I love you for who you are. Controlling versus equal, respectful, and supporting. So is it a controlling relationship, one where one person holds the power, or is it equal power? And finally, mostly sexual versus attraction on many levels. So what the students or the people that you're working with, they will be given a card that explains conditional, and it gives all the different explanations of what that might include under conditional. And what they're going to do then is they are going to form a sculpture out of it. And the kids, in fact, anytime I do this with teachers, they really love it. They will build a sculpture around, let's say, what does a controlling relationship look like? And so they will sculpt it, and each one will break down into groups, and each group will have a different type of relationship of those 6 different standards that we said. Okay, there's 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so each group will take that activity and sculpt their particular, what's on their card. And here's where it really shows that they have a clear understanding of it. Because all the groups then, when it's finished, they come around and they go to each group, presents and explains their sculpture. I love that. When they can explain it, when I can teach you what controlling relationships are, and I can explain what that looks like, that means I have it secure as well. I have a good sense. I'm on my way to understanding a healthy relationship. So that's one way that relationship education can help, especially these young parents you work with, maybe in Head Start. I know I was at a conference last month where it was a community action conference, and one of the community action staff came up to me, and she was thinking about where she could actually implement this. And she was thinking of, in her programs, they have WIC programs for young teen mothers. She said this would be a spectacular way in order to present to the mothers what kind of relationships they're raising their children in, and the impact of these children. And then also financial literacy beyond nutritional education. Another thing that relationship education helps young people and young adults to learn is how to form a smart relationship. Not necessarily what not to do, but most importantly, what can I do? So what do I need to do in order to have a good relationship? Well, it starts out with making it a good match. Be careful on choosing those marbles. Be intentional and pay attention to their values. And don't assume you can do a makeover on someone. You can't change those marbles. Those marbles are solid colors, and you shouldn't have to change them in order to change your choice. You made the choice, and that's what you got. You got the red marble. It's not turning green. Don't change yourself just to get someone's love. Expect good communication. Don't play games, manipulate. A lot of our young people learn that very early from their own parents on how to manipulate. Have a bottom line and expect respect. So finally now, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the programs that I have knowledge of that are incorporating relationships into their programming. And one of them is a program in Beloit, Wisconsin. And they have taken their Fresh Start program, which is a youth build program that combines job readiness with academics. And in their academics, they do have a life skills program. And they realized, besides just giving them job skills to work on, that, and also to get the academics done in order for some of their attendees to get their GED, there needed to be more. And so they incorporated relationship education into their job skills program. And it has made a big difference. It enhanced what the work they're doing. And in fact, they actually got a neighboring community action program to go along with them because they were having so much success with it. So not only just one program incorporated relationship education, but another, because they could see the difference. And this is so true with programs that we have worked with who have finally realized the importance of relationship education, how it can change not only the people they're working with today, but the future. Another one of the programs that I've been working with recently is in juvenile detention. And I just read recently this quotation, which I thought was so relevant to relationship education. The crime is a violation of people and relationships. It's not just a material crime. It's not just that you might have stole something, or it takes away the relationship within the community. That all things are connected to each other in a web of relationships. And the problem of crime is that it represents a wound in the community, a tear in the web of relationships. That damaged relationships are both a cause and an effect of crime. And I bet most people who worked in the juvenile detention industry can see that these damaged relationships both cause the crime and are effect of the crime. Children who are raised with unintentioned parents, who the child is just, okay, an accepted outcome of a poor choice in a relationship or a one-night stand. That's a damaged relationship unless there is some intention to understand the importance of how I choose to be with another, and then can cause an outcome in positive ways for that child. So what we have is a juvenile detention center here in Ohio. I live in Ohio, and it is a program where, and they're using fatherhood funding, that actually goes into the juvenile detention center once a week and teaches relationship education. I've talked to several juvenile detention people at conferences, and many times they never thought that, what about relationship education? They know that they have to get their GED, and that is most important so that they can get a job. But the same skills of romantic relationship definitely go over into keeping a job. It's one thing to get a job, but to keep the job, you have to be happy in that job, and you have to be one who can actually have a good home to go back to and have a good relationship, that you are working for somebody. It gives you a purpose. Another important, sort of similar program is a re-entry program. And Marcia White in Impact Community Action in Columbus has a re-entry program that takes 70 hours of class time, and 60 hours are devoted specifically to relationship skill building. And it supplements another program, Thinking for a Change, which is a re-entry transitional program for incarcerated. These 16 hours of relationship education have made such a difference in before any job skills are talked about. When a newly released prisoner comes out, Marcia found that what was happening in her classroom, in her job skills classroom, is they were beginning to connect with one another. They were so hungry to reconnect, to have that sense of touch. They wanted a romantic life. But they were doing it both out of need and not out of any intention other than to fulfill that physical need that they had. And so there was a lot of problems both in the classroom and also when these relationships didn't work out, their motivation for getting a job, for sticking with the class, was less than desirable. Once the relationship education began, then she was finding things were turning around. people were becoming a lot more self-fulfilled, confident about themselves, and actually staying on the job that they were getting. So a reentry program at Impact Community Action was an excellent example of how relationship education, and in fact, what's really unique about this is that she did not limit it to teens or young adults. They were at all ages. And it kind of was built on the principle that when there were people who began abusing drugs or had the informed trauma events happen to them, that their mental and maturity stopped developing at the age that occurred when they went into prison. So when they came out, they were still like young teens, even though they might be 40 years old, and relationship education still meant so much to them. They were not too old to learn it. How many times have people ever said to you, boy, I wish I knew that when I was younger? Well, that really held true here. People were not too old to learn, and relationship education, the skills that they learned, made a difference for them. And finally, this one program in Butte County, California, Esplanade House. And I have the website on here, and I really invite you to look at what they're doing. They're working with homeless families, and they have a foundation that they work with. They're very fortunate to have a foundation that provides them with the finances to provide a residential community. They have the first year of the program, it's a 2-year program. The adults live with their families. It is only open to families. And these adults learn intense daily case management skills, life skills, parent education, and self-sufficiency skills. With that, they are using, I believe, Love Notes program. And it has made a tremendous difference in, again, having that confidence to recognize what's healthy for them, to be sure that they are not falling into the same circular behavior patterns that they have experienced in the past that has gotten them into some of their difficulties that they face with their families. And finally, as far as what I'm thinking of changing future generations, I think of our young teenage parents or very young adult parents who come into Head Start programming, that their program environment is so conducive to learning. The skills that some of you who are at Head Start programs have the audience there. And you can tell me in our audience, and I invite anyone who's on Head Start, how you might incorporate relationship education into a Head Start. In talking to Head Start leaders, they all say they can understand and see the parents and their issues, but they didn't have the resources for which programs to put in. Some of them didn't think about how relationship education can help and change the lives of their families. One thing that Catherine Eden put into or identified as one of the problems when there's unintended pregnancies. You know, we talked about how they didn't marry after maybe majority, like 5 years down the road after the birth of the child. The father and mother break up. Mother moves on to a new partner, And that new partner, of course, doesn't want the old partner around, or does the mother. And maybe there's been problems and some really good reasons not to have the father around at the time. But that child wants to know his father. And it is these relationship skills, when they're present, it doesn't mean that the mother and father are going to be together. What it means is that they will be able to co-parent, that child has a chance of knowing his father for the rest of his life, rather than not even given that choice because the mother has moved on. And it's important that we teach our young mothers that a father cannot be dissolved. It is going to be part of that child's life forever. And the absence of it is going to be a great hole in their life as well. So Head Start is an excellent place to have relationship education implemented. But that pretty much, I talked about, funding streams. And I guess the one final funding stream that I would like to mention is, actually two of them. Fatherhood money grants are many times the state, they come through the state, and that would be a good place to look for them. I don't have direct information on which states might have that funding available, but that might be some place that you want to start looking at, and also how your state distributes its TANF money, the money for needy families. The actual TANF dollars are being used in quite a few of our programming that we work with in organizations. And our next webinar actually will have a team of a panel of people who actually are doing that, using TANF money to incorporate relationship education into workforce development and also strengthening families. So that's about
Irene,
it for
I was
Kathy.
thinking
Yes.
that maybe we could stop a minute, because you did show us a lot of different ways that people are integrating relationship education into their community programming. I would like to see a raise of hands of who on this webinar is listening that actually has or is now incorporating relationship education into their programming. I think that might be interesting for us to see.
Thank you, Kathy.
Can you raise your hand? There's a little button there by your name, and you can click by your name under the raise your hand, and then we'll be able to see how many might be using it now. I'd be interested in knowing that.
Well, that will go along with that poll question that I have for you.
Looks like we have about, I'm going to say a little over 10% listening. So, okay, and then there's some more that's saying that they do, but they're not actually see to raise their hand. Someone has mentioned also, Irene, that they're trying to get relationship education into youth organizations and the schools and colleges in the UK. So I know that we are working with someone over there in doing that, some sort of pilot study. Do you know much about that, Irene?
I don't have the details on that, but, you know, I'm sure Kay would be the one to talk to on that.
Okay. Well, we can get back with...
Yeah. I think if they would like to email kreed@dibbleinstitute.org to, you know, explore that situation. And I also have a poll question that I wanted to end with, because I wanted to, given what we know today about where families are and the importance that their romantic life is not something to be taken lightly, that it does impact our communities.
Okay,
Many of you not only are doing it, but can you put that poll question out?
Sure, I'm going to launch that question now. And you can see you can actually just go right, use your mouse and go right on your screen and click your answer there. It says what keeps you, what keeps you from including relationship education in your programs? Relationship education in your programs. Might it be funding, lack of upper management or community support, lack of knowledge of what to include, not convinced that relationship education is needed, or maybe another reason? Let's see what most of you are saying here.
Because we have, smart people that listen to these webinars, and I'd like to know where are they?
Okay, I'm going to give you a few more seconds here. And if you do put other in, it probably would be nice if you would put that information, what that other is, in your question box. That way we can kind of talk about that. I know that some say they're looking into adding it. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share it. There you go. It looks like 47% say funding, which I'm not surprised to see. 47% say other. Someone says here it's sometimes hard to get people to attend when they do offer them. 41% say lack of upper management and community support.
Do you want to take the screen back by now?
Surely. I'm going to take this. I'm sorry. All righty. There's a lot of process here to get you to see my screen again. I'm sorry about that. I just really want to thank all of you for attending today, and we're really just beginning this conversation with you about relationship education in the community setting. As Irene has said, we know we will be showing you or having at least one more webinar concerning this in January, which I will show you in a minute. But we will have other ones within the year. If you are interested in ordering anything from our Dibble website, we actually want to thank you for attending by giving you free shipping, which saves you actually 10% off your order. And you can just use that magic little code there, webinar, at your checkout. After we finish the webinar, if you will please help us by filling out a brief survey. We really want to know what it is that you want us to present in the way of topics and some other ways that we can help you, and giving us that information will help us. And again, I will be posting the webinar by Monday on our website at www.dibbleinstitute.org/webinars. And I know that we'll also have the PDFs and the links for those research pieces that Irene was talking about, because some of those addresses were rather long. If you have any other questions or anything that I or Irene can help you with, you can email us. You see our emails there. And of course,
Kathy, can I add something?
Sure.
I wanted to also mention with that poll question, like not having the funding and also the support, the rationale for relationship education exists in that research.
Okay.
And it is on our website as well, that when you do presentations to people who could possibly give you the funding necessary to include and expand your programming to include relationship education, we at the Dibble Institute are most happy to help you with your wording, and if it is writing out a grant or anything like that, we're here to help you with that. And so because those are the two top choices for not doing it. Like I said, we're all smart. We know what's needed. But we need to tie relationship education to the economics of the land, because it is taking up community resources in the long run.
Thank you, Irene. You see the many ways that you can keep in touch with us. We do have a newsletter that will help you with funding sources when we get them and find them available. We also send them out to you through our newsletter and through other ways that we have. Of course, Facebook and LinkedIn. And for the month of December, Since you're so used to coming on the second Wednesday webinar series with us, we're going to want you and give you the opportunity to take that time to look in our archive webinars. We archive every webinar with PowerPoints and with PDFs next to them. And so that will give you a chance to kind of look at any of the ones that you may have missed over time. But in January, we will be having the webinar that Irene had talked about. It's called Building Relationship Skills with Young Adults in Community-Based Programs. And Irene, would you like to tell us who is going to be on there?
It's going to be Joanne Eason, who is the project manager for Public Strategies, who is actually one of our grant partners who is working with Youth Build of Los Angeles. And they have incorporated a wonderful, all-encompassing, much like Esplanade House, to cover nutrition, GED, workforce development, and relationship education into their programming of high-risk individuals. So I think they will have the answers of exactly how they do and accomplish what they do and what their outcomes are. They'll be with us.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to that myself because I think that's a wonderful program that Dibble is involved in, and they're really noticing quite a bit of change in that program.
Oh, I TANF to a greater link as well.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in January after the busy December seasons. And we will put this registration up on our website in the next few days for you to register for January. Thank you, and hope you all have a great evening.